You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello. Please let me see your ticket stubs for the double-edged double bill. Your ticket stubs. I have to see them. Please let me see your ticket stubs. This week, low budgets lead to fateful findings of Psycho Goreman. Each week, Adam Thomas and Thomas Mariani will come to the table to discuss the randomly selected yin and yang of a double feature. Then, both will have to pick a number between 1 and 10 in order to seal their fates for the next episode. One will have 2 good movies, the other 2 bad ones. Let the chaos begin. I am Adam Thomas, and I am Adam Thomas, and I can't get you out of this one. Not this time. I can't believe you did it. I can't believe you committed suicide.
And I'm Thomas Mariani, and Adam, on this computer I have all the files that I have hacked into for all the corrupt governments. All their secrets will be revealed.
Even the president of the bank?
I'm sorry to tell you this, Adam, you better sit down. The president of the bank is implicated in these files.
Oh, not the president of the bank.
I knew he was your favorite idol that you always looked up to, but you can't meet your heroes, Adam.
That son of a bitch.
Well, if you're confused right now, don't worry. We are too, about that particular film we're referencing. We'll get into a lot of that with the second feature in our double bill, because every week, Adam, on Double Edge Double Bill, we like to take 2 films that we picked at the end of our last episode based around a general topic and devote discussion to both. And the topic for this week, we decided, you know what, start of the summer movie season, we're actually going to start getting movies in theaters as people hopefully get vaccinated. But at the same time, while we're getting some of these big blockbusters, we got to pay tribute to especially all the low-budget films out there. Particularly, our parameters for low budgets were $2 million or lower. Because usually most movies have somewhere between a $5 million budget and upwards of hundreds of millions, depending on the movie. But in particular, as of recent, we have a lot more sort of like either massive, huge budgets or very teeny tiny movies that come out now on middle ground. And we're talking about the teeny tiny ones today.
Yeah, that's true. It's either Marvel or Blumhouse. That's kind of where you're at nowadays, at least on that level of budget.
Yeah, that's true. So it's like, well, what about like a romantic comedy starring a couple leads? Is it a Blumhouse or is it a Marvel?
Look, I'm Johnny Hollywood. I make the rules around here.
That's his name, Johnny Hollywood. It's official. It's on his birth certificate and everything. Yeah, the guy who runs Hollywood.
Low-budget movies, for the most part, are some of my favorite films ever. Because with a low budget, they have to, A, get more creative, B, stick to the story they're trying to fucking tell and not meander so much, for the most part. So, yeah, it's a wealth of films out there that, yeah, a lot of people don't even give the time of day.
Especially with, like, that's how so many people get their start in their careers. Like, without low-budget cinema, especially around in the 90s, you wouldn't have people like Robert Rodriguez or Quentin Tarantino or Kevin Smith. People who are still making great movies to this day at higher budgets, right? All of them, right?
Yeah. But, I mean, even to go back, if we didn't have low budget in the 70s, you wouldn't have Steven Spielberg. You wouldn't have George Lucas, you wouldn't have Ron Howard, you wouldn't have any of these guys. They all started, even James Cameron, for God's sakes, who's now, the richest director ever. But you wouldn't have any of these guys.
Yeah, as we talked about with Piranha 2 ages ago, the truly smallest budget start. It blossomed into an uncontrollable flower that will never cease to go underneath the ocean and make Avatar sequels.
Oh, God.
But, Adam, we're talking about 2 very different films from any of those filmmakers. Films made by true geniuses that still work in low budget to this day. Well, we're talking about our good pick, which was your choice, which was Psycho Goreman, and then my bad pick, which was Fateful Findings, which will have a lot to say about both those films, but particularly Fateful Findings. But first, let's go ahead and get into our good feature, Psycho Goreman.
Many moons ago, A nameless evil was imprisoned in a place far beyond reach. If he were ever to be released, it would spell certain doom for all existence.
Is that fear I smell? Your planet will be torn to pieces, and I will treat your angry screams as I rip.
Is this yours? Speak?
Oh my god.
The gem of Paraxidike. Whoever wields it is able to command me.
Go over there and wait for us to come back in the morning.
You will suffer an eternity for this.
The ultimate evil has awoken.
There's a new god in town, and his name? Psycho Goreman.
So, Psycho Goreman, or PG for short, is a film that came out earlier this year, actually. Played some festivals last year, some digital ones, but was officially released in January 22nd of 2021, and is written and directed by a guy named Steven Kostanski, who is a director that's usually worked in lower budgets. He used to be a member of this troupe called Astron 6, who tended to make these kind of low-budget genre films. They started off with something like Manborg, which if you haven't seen is very fun. They're kind of like pastiches of 80s movies, in particular like low-budget 80s movies. And it's gone on to stuff like Father's Day, or eventually The Void, which we both have seen, and that we definitely recommend. I think that's his best film. It's a great sort of Carpenter-y horror throwback. But this is more of like a horror comedy, like a lot of the stuff he's made, particularly. This is a guy who comes from sort of like internet sketch stuff as well. He did a lot of that. And you can tell this feels like it comes from somebody who does internet sketch stuff, for good and for bad. You could definitely say. But why don't you go ahead, Adam? You picked this, but you hadn't seen it before. You just heard I'd seen it before and really wanted to watch it. And how do you feel about it?
I mean, I like it. It's super fun. I love the effects. As cheesy as some of them are. I mean, and most of them are really sort of, you could tell, low budgety, but they look awesome. And they're so original looking. It's really cute. It's got a lot of good heart to it. Surprisingly, in such a fucking violent, gory mess of a movie. It's just, the thing is, I know I shouldn't be analyzing a movie like Psycho Goreman for lack of character development, but that's really sort of my problem with the movie. None of the human characters really do anything to keep my interest in this movie.
Well, it's funny you say heart, because I would argue the exact opposite. And I think that's a positive for the movie, honestly, is that, because I watched this earlier, and then we watched it for the show, and what I kind of respect about this movie is it has an incredibly cynical, bitter sense of humor and sense of its story, and I think any of the attempts at heart are more just kind of like parodies of Amblin films, in a way that I think is quite fun, but at the same time I do agree, especially upon the second watch, I feel like it kind of makes the story feel a lot thinner, and some of the jokes feel not quite work as well as it does. But we should probably explain, like, most people aren't aware of what this movie is, I would argue. So we should probably, like...
I'd say probably no one knows what this is.
No, great for SEO. Everybody come and listen. But basically, Psycho Goreman is a movie that features two young kids, Mimi and Luke, who are brother and sister, who come across this little thing inside of their yard, this thing that was buried underneath this gem that's glowing. And they're like, I wonder what this is. And they soon encounter a creature from an unfathomable monstrous space, who they ultimately name Psycho Goreman, because the thing is, even though this monstrous creature who, as he describes, has killed like hundreds and is this like monster just based in destroying things, as long as Mimi has the jewel, she's able to control this monster. And the thing about Mimi is, I think what makes her personally my favorite of the human characters, is she's an unrepentant, completely lacking in empathy monster of a human person.
Yeah, she's a psychopath.
I find it really fucking hilarious. I think credit to its Nida Josihana is so fucking delightful as this awful inhuman monster of like an 8-year-old girl. I find it so fucking funny every time. She just doesn't give a single shit about her brother's life or her mother or her dad, really. And I think that's just kind of like so fun to watch. but I don't think most of the other human characters have nearly as much of that personality.
No, I don't disagree with you. I think it's a really fun character beat for it, but it's just it got a little old for me after a while because it's just nonstop. There's no character change to her, which in a way is a good thing because they stuck to their guns. But after a while, I just kind of got bored with it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a problem of, like, the movie's only 95 minutes long, and I think this would work.
There's a lot of padding.
Yeah, it would probably work beautifully as, like, a 10-minute sketch. It would be, like, the most perfect thing possible.
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend, one of my favorite things that this guy has done is this fake trailer called BioCop, which they kind of include in this movie to a certain extent, they reference, where it's a fake trailer about, like, sort of that's like a parody of, like, a RoboCop, but the thing is, it's this cop who he's turned inside out, and he's, like, constantly oozing pus and all this awful stuff, so it plays like a cop trailer, just like, you're off the force, BioCop, but he keeps saying, like, please kill me, I want to die, which there's a character in here, who kind of looks like that, and he's played by Robert Homer, who is an actor who played the BioCop in the trailer, and I think, like, this kind of bit would work perfectly in that sort of limited amount of time, but at this, 95-minute length, I don't think it gets too long in the tooth for me. I think there's a point where you are kind of waiting for it to rush. I think it would probably have been even better at, like, more of a 75 minutes. This would be
I agree.
Pretty great.
Yeah, but I gotta say, I fucking laughed out loud when, for no reason, Psycho Goreman is dressed exactly like Dr. Alan Grant from Jurassic Park.
Yes, I think credit, like, Psycho Goreman himself, who's played by two people. There's Matthew Nienbar, who's the guy in the suit, and then Stephen Vlahos, who is the voice of Psycho Goreman. I do love the conceit of that character, who is just like this monster who can unleash all sorts of unfathomable terror, but is at the mercy of children, is a gag I think that doesn't ever really fault for me. I really love so much of him just being tagged along. He keeps saying horrible stuff to these children about, like, I would crush your bones and destroy every single fiber of your being, but I gotta do, like, this ball game that you've constructed that makes no sense, or shit like that. It's a really funny bit.
It was nice meeting you. It'd be nicer if you were dead. Another part that just got me in this movie is, not my hunky guys.
Well, no, especially when she's like, I do not care for hunky guys, or do I?
Yeah, there's like a longing look at the magazine, or do I?
Just fully embracing that Psycho Goreman might be attracted to hunky guys. Good on him.
The hunky denim models.
But no, yeah, and I think I agree with you about the creature design, particularly with Psycho Goreman. I think is pretty incredible, considering that it's like a $1.5 million budget. It's sensational the way that he looks, and all the other creatures that we see. There's kind of this thing to them where the way I described this movie shortly after I saw it was, it's kind of like the unholy union of Power Rangers, Trauma, Gore, E.T., and those weird drawings you made in the margins of your notebook at 13 when you were trying to learn physics.
That's very accurate. I do like the way his generals look too. They had some really cool designs to them. Like there's that steampunk like buccaneer, some like elf king with a tree crown. Like it was just kind of a cool idea that he went into all these different universes and worlds and conquered them and then kept their best.
Yeah.
To have his sort of generals. Like that was pretty fucking cool.
Who would you say is your favorite of those creatures, and any of the creatures in general?
Oh, I mean, if we're taking out Psycho Goreman, because he's absolutely my favorite.
Yeah.
The witch thing with the weird like bug eyes.
Yes.
With like the big shroud.
Who's spoken like Japanese, yeah.
Yeah, that was really creepy and sort of unsettling. I really liked the way that one looked. What about you?
My favorite is, it's not part of that group, although they're all great. And it's on the other, like the sort of the council of elders or whatever that we see who are watching over Psycho Goreman. Just the simpleness of, I believe his name is Tube Man, who was a brain inside of a robot body.
That was so good. That was so funny.
And they're all great, but even then, I love the fact also that like so many of these things either have like these very distinctive kind of personalities that are cliche to these creatures, or they have like very indistinct ones. Like there's the guy next to Tube Man in that council, the bit near the end credits where she's like, so here's plan B, and he puts out a gun and he's like, so who wants to shoot themselves first?
like an old dirty American gun, like
Yes.
an old dirty Earth gun. It's like an old detective six-shooter. So funny. I also really dug the one because I don't understand what they were doing with it, but I thought it was so cool. That giant vat of just meat and blood
Yes.
that had like that had blood squirters for arms.
Right.
Like, what the fuck even was that thing?
And I like the contrast in that particular sequence you're talking about where the generals come in, where the low budgetness works to like make these like designs and suits stand out so well, but then also make it so funny when they have like Power Rangers level fights, which is such a compliment because they're doing like a bunch of kick turns and all that, but they're in the middle of like a forest in like what looks like the upper northeast or whatever. They're nearly killing Psycho Goreman at a certain point, and it just looks like they're just kicking him off, and they're like a gang of kids just kicking like the one fucking weak kid at school. It's so fucking funny to see these horrific creatures just do like the dirtiest little like wrestling body moves. It's so fucking funny.
No, I completely agree. To you then, who is the weakest link in the movie out of the characters?
I think it's the brother, Luke.
Luke?
Which I think is part of the design with the joke, because especially how Psycho Goreman never remembers his name.
I know, which is so great. You made me. And it names his parents, and boy. You should know my name by now.
Yeah, that's a funny bit, but also, like, he's weirdly supposed to be kind of like the character you're endeared to, but I think that he feels like a wet blanket the whole time, honestly. Which, it makes you weirdly side with the Mimi character, who, once again, is a monster awful person. But you're like, you know what, she has a personality.
Yeah, I also didn't like the dad. The shtick with him got old, again, super fast for me. Like, you got it, and they just kept relying on the same thing over and over, and there was a lot of him in it. So he just didn't work for me either.
And he's played by Adam Brooks, who's another one of these filmmakers from, like, the Astron 6 thing. And I like that gag, so I think it's intermittent for me. I think particularly it works so well, the bit where he's on the toilet, and Psycho Goreman channels in with, like, his little hologram thing into the bathroom. It's like, oh, you have to find me! And he's, like, horrified, like, where do I find you? Oh, go to the field on this corner of these steps.
Yeah, it's just, let's put it this way. I liked a lot of this movie. I love the outlandish gore effects. Yes. I thought the whole thing that they did to the Alistair kid, like, what the fuck?
Yes, who's a friend of theirs who Mimi has some kind of crush on. And Psycho Goreman tries to convince her, just like, I can make him fall in love with you. I can work my magic to do as you please if you wish it. And then he uses his magic to turn him into a giant brain creature. And he's just that the rest of the movie.
He doesn't even change it back. I mean, in fact, the end sequence is that giant brain creature sitting there eating dinner with his parents. like just that's it. And I also just love that, the whole thing is like, I will spare your family. And then he just goes off and through a portal to another part of Earth and just starts fucking destroying the planet.
I know, that's why this movie is so inherently cynical and angry with what it's doing. I think in a way that makes it fun. It's mean, and we talked about mean not working in certain contexts, but I think in this case it's perfect because the whole movie is set up like an Amblin movie, where you figure Psycho Goreman is this evil monster who the kids end up kind of taking under their wing, and eventually you figure, he might change his tune, and it's like, they gave him the self-confidence to not be able to need the gem anymore so he can destroy more efficiently. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It is. This movie is incredibly cynical and mean, but it doesn't feel like it. And I'm never like, this is harsh or this is like anything. It's told in such a whimsical way. I've never really seen anything like this. I can say that. I've never seen anything like Psycho Goreman before.
No, it's definitely a movie that most people, if investors were to come up, just like, hey, here's our pitch for a movie, they'd be like, get the fuck out. Leave my site. As opposed to with the lower budget, they can make this weird fucking movie. And I think that's the big thing that makes me, I would say, like it pretty well still, despite some of the issues where I think it's a bit long or in the tooth or whatever. Is even with some of the human characters not quite working, it has this incredible creative energy where I think that's what makes it feel less cynical. Like, I would not argue it's whimsical whatsoever. I think it's like a gnarly, weird, it's like if a metal album invaded like a small town, basically, is what it feels like, in a way that I think is incredibly charming. But it still feels like it definitely kind of runs thin with the joke at certain points. I think partially because the human characters are kind of thin. Also, there's still even like fun bits where I agree with like the dad character has a lot of problems, but there's other stuff like I love during the big climax where like there's a whole running thread about him and the mom are probably going to get divorced or whatever. They have a really bitter marriage, and then after she's transformed, which by the way I also love that whole like robot angel character that she transforms into, who's also the main enemy of Psycho Goreman, is like sort of coming after him. It's this like robotic angel character. After the mom transforms out of that, and her husband grabs her and she's like, oh, Greg, you saved me. You need to drive me to the hospital. I think my hand's broken. Luke, can you drive?
I know, he's just a whiny prick. That's his character. He's a whiny prick.
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, though, and it just gets old for me after a while. Because, like I said, they do a lot with him as far as he's in the movie quite a bit. But, again, though, I also have to give it credit to where they don't really want you to care that much about that character, I don't think. They really want you to focus on, especially Mimi and Psycho Goreman and their sort of deal.
Well, also, more important, I think the most cynical thing about this movie really is that, like I mentioned, Psycho Goreman is the only one that has any kind of real change as a person. Like, they make a whole thing about, like, oh, like, Luke and Mimi become more friendly because they sang the song, which I do love, particularly the montage with that song. I'm the heckin' best. It's like, it's a really funny bit, but also, the movie's entire sort of message is, by the end of it, like, well, intergalactic horrible monster beings can change, but humans really can't. We're all kind of shitty, and we really can't change, so what's the point? Are you going to feel that bad about him destroying Earth? And based on the movie, just like, nah, I guess not.
Yeah, you're kind of rooting for him by the end. You want him to sort of succeed and destroy the Earth.
Yes, even down to, like, the whole climax of the movie, where everything hinges on, like, oh, is Earth going to be saved? Is based around their stupid fucking ball game, which they keep playing that has rules that don't make any sense. And they're playing it. Even, like, I love the angel robot lady is even at a certain point just shrugging, like, I don't know, what the fuck even is this? I don't understand the rules of this game. I do really...
Could you please repeat what the switcheroo is? Nope, should have been paying attention. Yeah, they play Crazy Ball.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, and one thing too, another effect I really do like, even though it's super cheesy, but it's just so well done and so graphic and gross, is when he's like, and I will give you a warrior's death. And then sort of like his whole body opens up and he eats them.
Yes,
it's gross, dude,
yeah.
But it's awesome.
That happens twice, and I do love the effect, particularly in the first instance that happens, where like he just at a certain point after he eats, he vomits blood up for a bit, and then he looks over at the kids and says, "What you have seen cannot be unseen. You will live with this until it eventually rots you into a grave."
I know. Luke is actually like gross, and the kids and Mimi's like, cool. Like, she's just a maniac.
Or even I love the bit too where she just goes up to the cross and she just talks about like, "Oh Jesus, you have to help me, please guide me. Which of these shades looks better?" "Just kidding, it's this one. I was totally gonna wear this. And also, you know what? There's a new god in town. His name is Psycho Goreman." Like, that's a bit that could have been cut out, but also it's just a fun bit of, once again, really building that, like, Mimi not only completely disrespects humanity, but also disrespects any form of religion whatsoever. She is God incarnate. She is the only person that matters in her universe. I just respect that, like, damn, they really went hard on this little monster child person.
That's true, man. She's constantly getting in these big creatures' faces and shit, too.
Yep.
Like, nobody tells me what to do. You know, frig off. You're like, oh, okay, shit.
It's basically like if the main girl in any of those, like, 90s Nickelodeon adverts was just like, "Kids rule, adults drool," was, like, the most psychopathic, completely lacking in any kind of empathy monster person. And it's so... I think, honestly, that's why I think she is the strongest character, is because she sticks to her gumption, and more is revealed just about how awful she is as a person as time goes on.
You know, that's true. I can honestly say that I think on a rewatch, I would probably like this one a little bit more. Not that I don't like it now. I do really like it. but I think it might even go up a notch if I rewatched it. It's so brutal. This movie is so violent in ways I did not expect.
No, yeah, and it also manages to really make up for its budget with certain things. Like, I think the best thing to display how much you can do with so low a budget is when you get Psycho Goreman's backstory that he tells the kids.
Yes.
Visually, where it's very clear, like, okay, there's, like, some stop motion here, there's some, like, small computer effects and stuff that clearly makes it, like, this isn't, like, a huge grandiose thing. But they build such a great mythology. Oh, I was enslaved in the camps, and then I found the magic gem, and I was able to harness my full potential and destroy those who tried to incarcerate me. It's really fucking metal and dope. Despite how small it is.
Yeah, dude. I mean, he just brutally rips apart these things. But that was also a cute scene, too, where he's telling the story, and then it cuts to the one boy, like, hitting the TV. Oh, it's working. He's like, and then he goes back into it. Like, because they interrupted his fucking origin story.
But that's the thing. The movie is aware of what sort of, like, all the big trappings are behind their influences, and it's really just about kind of taking the piss out of all of them, whether it be like Power Rangers or heavy metal albums or, you know, to a certain extent, even like the trauma aesthetics of it. It has like this really infectious ability to pay tribute to a lot of like the pop culture it's referencing, but never take it at all seriously.
Yeah, I guess I gotta agree with that too. God damn it, Thomas.
Am I turning you on the movie a bit?
No, because like I said, I still like it. But it's definitely making me want to rewatch it again.
Yeah, which we should say, this is currently available to rent, though it should be on Shudder, I think, within the month, since we're releasing this in May, because they picked it up. I think this is the perfect kind of movie for Shudder. That's the audience for this movie, is somebody who subscribes to Shudder on a regular basis.
Yes, absolutely agree. This is a good one, flicking through, like, what the fuck is this, and putting it on.
Yeah, and I would also recommend, this guy has also, I think, done a pretty good job. Like I mentioned The Void, but also even St. Patrick's Day was a bit ago, but he also directed Leprechaun Returns, which I would argue is the good Leprechaun movie.
Yeah, it's the best one.
Yeah.
Out of all of them, including the original. But that's not saying much.
No.
Because it's not great, but in comparison to what came before it, yeah, it's Paddington 2.
But it has similar quality, especially of like the kills in that movie are really dope as well.
Yes.
The gore and the guts and all that is really fun. And even it has like actual clever gags, which most of those horror comedy Leprechaun movies lacked in general. In a similar way to even this one, I would say, what's your favorite like all-out gore moment in Psycho Goreman?
Well, just the idea of it. I don't know if it's just all-out gore, but just the idea of it where he's got that punk in the beginning. He's like, you will live for eternity. And the next time it shows him, he's like this frozen husk of a dude where his eyes are constantly rolling in his head. And he looks just gross, and the boy knocks him over. And then just his mouth, that's literally just a piece of flesh on the ground. It's like, thank you. That was really good. And I also do like the sort of bio cop, inside out cop thing, especially when he gives her the Valentine.
Please kill me.
And she's like, oh, what is that? Please kill me, written in blood. And she's like, this isn't right. These are supposed to be nice cards.
I think my favorite of those is there's a bit where it's near the end of the big battle between like all of the different people in Psycho Goreman, and he gets the robot guy and just like, look into the abyss. Do you see where true darkness lies? And it's a reflection of the guy. He's like, yes, in ourselves. And then a hand just grabs that guy, and a monster hand, and takes off his face.
Oh, yeah, dude. Yep.
So good.
Just rips it right on. And there's like eye pus squirting out.
And he's like a weird robot man, so there's like gears and fucking oil coming out and shit like that. It's really great. But yeah, I think it's time to go into final thoughts because we have so much to say about our next feature. So let's go ahead and do final thoughts. Adam, your final thoughts on Psycho Goreman.
I think it's really fun. This would have been better as a short, even 10 to 20 minutes short. I think it would have really sort of hit a lot cleaner for me. But as it stands, I still think it's a really fun watch that I probably would have never watched, like ever. Even watching the trailer for it, I'm like, this looks kind of cheesy and hokey, which it is, but it does work for the story that they're trying to tell. And this movie is not for everyone. There would be certain people who would watch this and be champion, and there's going to be other people who are going to be like, that fucking sucked. And I don't think you're going to get too much in between.
Here's the litmus test. If you hear the title Psycho Goreman and you're interested, you should watch it. If that title immediately turns you off, don't watch it.
Yeah. Well, just like Manborg.
Yes.
I've seen Manborg. I thought Manborg was friggin' hilarious. But same thing. If the title Manborg, you're like, oh, that sounds stupid. You're not going to like it.
But if you say, oh, that sounds stupid, but I'm intrigued, go on.
Yeah.
Then yes, watch
right.
it.
Yeah.
And for me, like I said, I think this went down slightly with a rewatch here. When I initially saw it, I'm like, oh, this is great. And now I'm like, oh, this is very good. I think it's a lot of fun. I would still say The Void is this guy's best movie. And that one treats it much more seriously. It's much more of like a straight-up John Carpenter homage as opposed to a parody that this movie definitely is of what it's really going for. But I think it goes for the joke in a way that I would say 70% of the time really hits. I think, like, when it hits, it's so fun with that 70% of the time. And you can see so many of the homages. Like, we didn't even talk about this scene, but the nightmare sequence Luke has, it's very much a Phantasm ripoff.
So fun.
Really fucking funny, yeah, right?
So what do we do now? Well, we have to wait for the stream to end. It just zooms out. He's just standing there by his bed.
But I would say, yeah, if you have a Shudder account in particular, this is the movie for you. If you're a person that just like, oh, one of my main streaming services, Shudder, it's kind of the perfect thing for you. And if you like also some extent of like D&D or Gore, some of these weird niche things that kind of all cycle together in this movie, it's kind of your thing. And also, more importantly, if you can have your tongue firmly in cheek with all those things, I think it really embraces that in a very fun way. But before we get into our next feature, Adam, here is a promo for an ESO show you can queue up right after ours.
I'm Drew Leiter.
And I'm Cletus Jacobs.
Join us this winter as we watch changes in the DC Universe unfold. We'll keep you informed on DC News, we'll review the future state event, and of course, we'll be talking the Arrowverse shows when they return this January.
Thanks for letting us be a part of your DC Comics journey, and thanks for listening to the Earth Station DCU podcast.
Part of the ESO Network.
All right, let's get into the Neil Breen directed, written, and starring masterpiece, Fateful Findings.
I was given paranormal powers as a child.
I've hacked into just about all the information I need. They have no idea.
No more books!
You were given a power.
Others want to take this from me.
All this time, I haven't been working on my next book. I've hacked into the most secret government and corporate secrets.
So Fateful Findings came out January 14th, 2014, and is a film by auteur Neil Breen, who I have threatened for years that we need to cover a Neil Breen film on the show. And clearly, we both waited until we could perfectly comfortably rent the movie for about $24 on Vudu. That's how we watched it, clearly. Together. We should mention, behind the curtain, folks, Adam and I have been doing movie nights just for us, where we watch some movies, go through, have some fun, making fun of them. That's not monetized, just us hanging around. And this is the first time we have ever, in the history of the show, watched one of the movies we were going to cover for the show as part of those movie nights, because I was insistent on hearing Adam's initial opinions, because he hadn't seen a Neil Breen movie before. I have seen many of his films, and I'm a true fan of this guy who's an architect in Nevada, who bankrolls these weird low-budget movies that he does. We don't have an exact budget, but I can tell you straight up, this is definitely under $2 million, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Adam, I'm not going to task you to do a plot synopsis, because that's impossible for this film. But I do want you to take the floor, because I believe I introduced you to a religious experience by exposing you to Mr. Breen's work.
I mean, to put it fucking lightly, this is the wackiest / worst / best thing I've ever seen in my life. This movie defies all comprehension and all earthly limits and boundaries. This movie is like an impossible equation. This is what fucking Will Hunting solves on the board. This movie. Who? Well, we know who. Specifically Neil Breen. And there's no question that he made this movie for him, but in a way, it's just a beautiful gift for all of us. Now, I really am thankful to you, not only for showing me this and picking this, but also for not trying to task me with a plot synopsis, because it's impossible. It's impossible to synopsize this movie. I'm going to go ahead and synopsize it exactly the way that I told my brother about it. Neil Breen plays a former computer scientist turned author turned computer hacker turned shaman that can phase through things turned like whistleblower turned sex god turned that's about all I got. That's literally the movie. And you go through all of these things with him, and you go on such a wild, crazy, fun journey. I mean, he's in therapy, which is good. You know, most people need therapy. His one therapist, which, by the way, his therapists are the oldest fucking people I've ever seen on film. His one therapist is in a whole boardroom, a giant boardroom, and they sit at opposite ends of the boardroom table, clearly, because they're not in the same scene together. But then his second therapist, who is in the same building, has a corner and 2 steel folding chairs, and they literally sit knee to knee.
Are you saying, Adam, that they couldn't afford an actual, like, psychiatrist's office for any of these scenes?
Well, obviously not, but why not just put it in his fucking house? That's where the hospital room is. So you might as well just do the psychiatrist's office at the same thing.
But Adam, that place would have, like, a couch, and that wouldn't fit at all for a psychiatrist's office. It's either a super long boardroom table or 2 folding chairs. That's what you sit in.
Yeah, a couple folding chairs that, you know, are left over from like WrestleMania 17. It's just, huh? And, you know, and we're watching it, and Thomas, you know, at first I was getting a little frustrated because you're like, don't ask me questions. Don't ask questions. And I'm like, all right, I have to ask some, because what is going on?
Well, I told you straight up, like, not necessarily don't ask questions. I just said, Adam, even if you ask me questions, I will not be able to answer a single one of them.
And at first I'm like, no, come on. No, that's 100% accurate. There is no way to answer anything like, what? And he shows his body all the time in the movie, and he's got like a weird scarecrow man body.
Yes.
And it's so disgusting, and he shows it constantly. His one nipple is out frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is happening here? And his awful hair, and just, yeah. And his wife, like, clearly comes from Transylvania or something. Like, I don't know where the hell she's from.
She was next door neighbors with Tommy Wiseau growing up. It's very clear.
Yeah, and she's really into toilet pills. Like, this is fucking wild. And also, the neighbors have this, like, young daughter that's attracted to Dylan, who is Neil Breen. And I'm not sure whose daughter she is, because at one point it's like, you need to go talk to your stepdaughter. And it's like, you don't find out that the dude's her dad until he gets killed, which of course happens, which is awesome.
No, Adam, he committed suicide. I can't believe that he committed suicide.
Right, clear, which is what I was referencing in the intro, my name intro. And that's one thing, too. If you like your dialogue, lines of really poorly read dialogue, repeated 3 to 4 times in the same sort of scene, this is the movie for you. Because, man, does Neil Breen do that every fucking time he's on screen. And it is glorious every time. He really hit. You know what it is? He's just trying to make sure he nails the line. And by the 4th time, fuck editing, by the 4th time, he's got it.
Well, the weird thing is, you would think that, but also he wrote the script, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's written on the page like that either.
I don't think it, I mean, it might be. I wouldn't be surprised. But I honestly think it's improv. I honestly think he's trying to fucking, like, really be in the moment and act. And he just can't do it, so he's just repeating the same line over.
That's what's so fascinating about Neil Breen, because, like, we talked about The Room before, ages ago on the show. And that's a movie where like we've talked about how initially it was sort of like very sincere, and then every time Tommy Wiseau's come back about it, it's like, no, it was intentionally kind of a comedy. But we know that's bullshit.
Yeah,
as opposed to Neil Breen 100% believes in his vision and has never said otherwise, and is so completely 100% through with this vision, to the point where, like, he's so sincere despite how completely awful and wooden he is, that I wouldn't be surprised if your theory is correct about that dialogue, or my theory is correct, or both 100% correct. Because, like, the thing that I doubt the most about your theory is that Neil Breen would have any kind of trepidation about him delivering the line at all.
So that's true. That's a good point.
Neil Breen lacks any kind of self-doubt, which I think is what makes any of his different movies fascinating to watch, because you're watching movies that either are 100% a joke, or if you find out about Neil Breen, you're like, oh no, this man completely believes the bit and doesn't have any kind of trepidation about that.
Oh no, he believes he's really getting a message across in these movies. He really, really believes he's making something important. And I'd argue that he is. It is super important. He defies all classification as far as an auteur or even human. He's a weird lizard man. Like, you know that conspiracy theory where there's lizard people, like George Bush was a lizard man?
Yeah.
I think Neil Breen is the lizard man. Like, I think
he's the one real lizard man.
Yeah, he's the real one. Like, he lives in Hollow Earth. This is so fucking mind-blowingly stupid, yet in a way where it's like, maybe he's smarter than everybody in the world.
It's like that meme of playing 4D chess. Neil Breen is like 16-dimension chess.
He's on another fucking level, man. This guy. I mean, I'm not a religious guy, but I kind of am now because of this movie. Like, if something so perfect and pure and magical can exist, there has to be an almighty creator, right? Neil Breen doesn't just, well, maybe he could have just spawned from the primordial ooze. I don't know.
He's been alive for centuries. That's the thing.
That would explain his overall look. While watching this, I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck how are we even gonna talk about this? Because you can't. Like the movie itself, all you could do is just form a series of loosely connected thoughts to sort of talk about it. How can you say, well, at this point, when he did this, that part was really cool? Because it's all so fucking crazy and jumbled and all over the place. I can't even. There's no story arc here. There's no plot, really. I mean, it's the work of either a madman or a genius or someone who's so smart he's gone crazy. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
And I think it's what I want to be. But I agree with you that it's hard to really describe a Neil Breen film, but it's fascinating to especially just watch unfold. This is a movie we 100% recommend watching at some point if you can, because it is one of those you have to see to believe. And having seen the other Neil Breen movies, I can at least have this context that we're talking about. Because, like, especially these other filmmakers like Tommy Wiseau or the guy who made Birdemic, other things, they make one movie and it's like, oh, it's brilliant, so bad, it's good, genius. And then they try and make another one, it's like, oh, they're in on the bit, and they know it's kind of a joke, and it's really bad to watch. As opposed to with every other Neil Breen, because this was the first one I saw, and I'd heard he was sort of like an internet meme. Bits from this movie are all over the internet in terms of how terrible they are. Particularly like the suicide scenes. Like, I can't believe it. I can't believe you committed suicide. That whole delivery, or even the bit where the young girl has come over and is like trying to seduce Neil Breen. It's like, you have to stop coming over. Stop it. I mean it. You can't keep coming over. Like, I'd seen these bits, but I hadn't seen the whole movie in full until I was invited to by some friends. And I think what's so fascinating watching that in the other movies is you can tell that this dude, like I mentioned, doesn't have any trepidation about what he's saying, and just has no possible talent to deliver it in a digestible, commercially engaging way. So the way he processes that out, it feels like performance art. it feels like something that is, like you mentioned, like it's gotta be playing on some higher level. If this guy isn't a joke, which, seeing the other movies, he's not joking around, it's gotta be some kind of weird, brilliant performance art that's a commentary on maybe capitalism, or Hollywood cinema, or on corrupt governments, or any of these other things. And maybe it's that, but also it could be just intergalactic messages that have been sent to us, and we're just getting them.
That's very possible. Like, this is what the Hubble sent back. You know, and it's like, also, you know what a really good analogy for it is, like, are you an Office fan? The show The Office?
I've seen the show with the Steve Carell and others. Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly. There's a lot of scenes in that where Steve Carell goes to like an improv class, or tries out for plays, and he thinks he's the best in the room, and it's almost embarrassing to watch. That's what Neil Breen to me is. He thinks he's the best in the room, but he is not embarrassed about how hard he falls.
Oh no, it's very much like what was the movie that he made, like Threat Level Midnight? Was that the movie?
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
The great episode of The Office where they just show clips of the movies making the entire series long. It is very much that, but not written by comedy writers. Written by someone who...
Right, not funny.
Not intentionally funny at all, no.
Yeah, no, this is... Why is he Vision in parts of this, where he can just phase through walls and shit? Like, I don't... Is it because of... Well, we also left out that they found a magical mushroom in the beginning of the movie.
Right, when he's a child, clearly at the same age as, like, his romantic lead in the movie.
Yeah, where he's like he looks like he could be her fucking father.
Yes. 32 years older than the actress. And that's another thing, is also kind of like Tommy Wiseau, he fancies himself a ladies' man, where literally, you said that whole thing about like, oh god, why is the daughter attracted to him? It's like, well, Adam, she's a human being in a Neil Breen movie who's female. All of them are attracted to him to some degree.
Oh, 100. And by the way, none of them wear undergarments, ever.
None of them wear a bra. No, there's plenty of sequences where it's very clear he insisted they not wear a bra, and the actresses are very uncomfortable.
And God, when he kisses any of them, oh no, it's like a leather man. It's like this weird leathery ghoul. Like, get the fuck out of here, man! Like, it's just, yeah, I'm making fun of the guy. Maybe he's a fucking android, and that's where he got hit. I don't know. I don't know who this guy is. I don't know what this guy is. Like, he's like either a harbinger of doom or the savior. One of the two.
Or both. He could easily be both. He is like all things incarnate.
Oh, depends how much you believe it. Yeah, the incarnate is all and nothing. He is the true one being.
He's what you would actually get with Dr. Manhattan, as opposed to like the big buff masculine, just sort of like embodiment of I am atom made of atoms. He is just fucking this thing that exists.
I'm tired of this place. I'm tired of it. I said, leave me alone.
These people, their books.
Yeah.
Which also, one of the great bits in this movie, in which he holds up a book, which, by the way, is supposed to be his book, but is very clearly The War Within by Bob Woodward, and that you can see it on the spine. And he's like, no, more books, because people are trying to get him to write books. And he throws them at these 4 different laptops he has, that eventually either fall over.
Those laptops take a fucking beating in this movie.
Look, they better have gotten stunt pay, along with, like, SAG money, because, like, they deserved it. And just also the sequences where, like, he's trying to drink coffee, and he's just like, it spills all over. The thing is, we could describe these sequences to you people. We could do it, especially if you haven't seen the various internet clips, but you can't fathom.
You have to look for it.
Yes.
Like, even if you do just watch the various internet clips, because finding the actual movie, either A, it's hard to find, or B, when you do, it's fucking ridiculously overpriced.
Right, which we clearly paid the price. That's what we did. 100%. That's what we did. Especially Neil Breen, if you're listening. Please, yes, that's what we did.
Yep, we are 100% honorable. Thank you so much for letting us purchase that.
Yes.
But, yes, of course. TM. But no, I mean, even if that's the only way you could find it, is just find like an internet supercut of Neil Breen shit. Do it. It's so worth it. It is so worth it, because no matter how much we describe any of these scenes, it's not going to be as impactful unless you see it for yourself.
Yes.
Because describing these scenes to someone who hasn't seen it, they're like, what? Like, okay. You show it to him, and it's like, what the fuck? Okay, like, this is a thing. Yeah, it's nuts. It is fucking nuts. The Bentley hit him. I'm a witness. It's still parked there with blood all over it. Like,
right. And we've talked about his acting and his writing skills. We haven't really talked about the direction of Neil Breen in this movie, which is to say, some of the worst inserts and like weird effects in After Effects possible. Like, there's a whole recurring thing where he gets his powers allegedly from whatever this mushroom thing is, which is represented by a cloud of smoke that has like weird ghost sound effects, like whoa.
It only moves in one direction.
Yep.
It's the same fucking effect every time they show it, and they show it a lot.
Don't even put it in reverse, just the same exact effect.
Yep. Oh god.
Or inserts of people where like they're talking on the phone and stuff, and they're clearly like outside with the blue sky, and it's just a shot looking up at them as they're saying things like, "Oh, has somebody hit him?" Or, "I can't come into the office today." And it's just like, you did all these like in a parking lot.
Or my favorite
Yes.
is when they have the barbecue in his backyard, and there's about, we figured 5 to 7 people there.
Yes.
Because one guy, the guy we dubbed the guy who cleans up the putt-putt golf place, just shows up and disappears a couple times. And yet the background noise is like there's a fucking quinceañera going on. Like, it's fucking insane. Just
the Foley, which is all of the stock like stuff you get in like your fucking Final Cut. That's just like the most stock possible sound effects, just like whoa, just to indicate, oh, there are people having a good time here. It's one of many decisions that convince us that Neil Breen is an alien of some sort, because all these things are just like, this is what the humans do. This is what humans produce out of their mouths during a party.
Do you remember the movie Sneakers?
Yes.
Now, the scene where David Strathairn is asking Robert Redford to describe what he heard. He's like, oh, it was a cocktail party. Turns out it was a bunch of flamingos. Play that in the background of the party scene, and there you go. That's what you got. It's just a bunch of fucking loud noise. Sounds like it could be birds or people just fucking having a badass time. And there's 5 people there.
Also, speaking of Sneakers, though, this kind of feels like a Dan Aykroyd conspiracy theory, like brought to life on a very low budget as well.
Oh, 100%. Because you can't really find a whole bunch of like real information about Neil Breen. Well, at least not thorough information.
Except if you go on his Wikipedia page and find his Wikipedia image, which is his eyes closed as of this recording.
He's smiling with his eyes closed. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
I'm not convinced though that he's got to be a conspiracy theorist guy. Like, he's got to believe in aliens and Skinwalker Ranch and all crazy shit. He has to be.
Whenever you watch any of his other movies, that becomes very clear. Even like the end of this movie, though, is just like the most basic attempt at like, oh, there is corruption in the government, or these politicians we don't trust, or like you mentioned, the president of the bank. There's this whole thing where he unveils his quote-unquote big hacking secrets, and he's at a press conference where he reveals this, and every single one of these people is like, I am the president of the bank, and I used the information from people to steal their money, and I am resigning as president of the bank. And then he shoots himself.
2 people shoot themselves.
Yes.
One slits his wrist with a steak knife in a bathtub.
Yes.
One, the lady kills herself in the car, like for carbon monoxide poisoning in the garage, and yet her windows are completely rolled up, so she would actually be fine. And then the other guy hangs himself with a really shitty-looking noose. Like, no way is that going to hold this.
You forgot the best one, which is the guy at the end, who I believe is the senator, who is just like, I can't live with all of this shame. And so he gets into his car and takes pills and instantly dies and just slowly, gradually puts his head on the wheel.
That's right. He takes a couple pills and, you're right, instantly dies. Like, he swallows and it's like, ugh, and he's dead. That wouldn't even happen with rat poison. No. You'd have you'd have at least a minute of like, oh, come on. No, this guy takes something and just like, bleh.
Of course, they're not
dead.
the only people to die, because there's the one guy who tries to assassinate Neil Breen who was shot off-screen by a person we don't know.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. What the fuck was that? I completely forgot. Like, who shot that guy?
I just really want there to be a reverse shot of, like, that weird effect, ghost effect, and it has a sniper and it's whatever.
Or the sort of government spy they send to kidnap his girlfriend to lure him out, and it's just some fucking punk ass like Tony Hawk skater kid in a hoodie and Jinko jeans, and yet he's supposed to be like this government spy. And then when Neil Breen finds him, he's just passed out drunk in front of a trailer. Oh, this is a masterpiece.
Where is she?
10 out of 10.
Where is she? Where is she? I don't know where she is. You need to tell me. Where did you put her? Where is she? And we haven't even talked about the weird David Lynch inserts of the weird room that's like covered in
black garbage bags. Yeah. And he's all oily and nude, of course, in this room. And
also next to nude women many times who are scrunched over next to him.
Yeah, and I think it's supposed to be the doctor girl, but it's clearly not. Like, she has completely different hair, like even a hair color. I'll never, like, what? Dude? Or like the weird mirror effects where he'll be looking at himself in the mirror and then he'll walk off and yet the reflection is still there and it'll slowly phase away.
Right, and then that mirror will be used to like do Haunted Mansion style effects where it fucking shakes back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Then the same shot of it over and over and over doing it. It's not even like a continuous thing. You can tell they got it doing it for like 5 seconds and just loop it. Oh, it's so good. It's such a masterpiece.
Adam, I don't think we can really go on describing this movie that much. And
I don't even think we did.
I think we both did and didn't. I think that's the thing, is that we both did describe so much about what goes on in this movie, but also couldn't even fit it all in. We haven't mentioned much about the next door neighbor guy who's constantly doing the worst drunk acting. We didn't mention the dinner scene where Neil Breen has the most awkward looking smile as he looks at the weird girl who's like, I guess of age, but says that she's like just graduating high school. We haven't even talked about the wife who also just like, I was at the office all day, and throws her fucking wine at this guy in her husband's face. So much is being like left on the table here. 'Cause guys, I think I can speak for your final thoughts on this, Adam. I think I can speak for your final thoughts on this, which the only thing we can say is this is the worst movie ever made and the best movie ever made. Please see it so you can realize what the fuck this is, because you all need to see it if you haven't. And if you have seen it, watch it again.
This took the best bad movie spot by a fucking country mile on our show for me.
I was going to ask, compared to Miami Connection.
No. This is number one with a fucking really poorly digitized bullet. Like this is just bar none the greatest thing I've ever seen. Like, there's nothing. I don't think any. And I saw my daughter born. You know what I mean? Like, this is fucking. This is amazing. What about you? Where would you put this as far as the best of the bad?
I mean, it's really tough. The Miami Connection is just like, it's so weird to compare because like they're both very bad movies, but they're both very bad in completely different ways. I would argue both are very incompetent, but in very clearly different ways, different eras, so much. But they are both so earnest. I'll say that I think if nothing else, Miami Connection has more like a fun earnestness, as opposed to this is a bit sleazier, which I would say makes it slightly go down for me. If nothing else, I would also say it's much better than The Room in terms of so bad it's good quality.
Oh, completely agree. Yeah, completely agree. I'll take this over The Room any day. You know, and one thing Miami Connection has over this is dudes in a house that constantly are just in their underwear and towels, or just unbuttoned jeans and towels.
Also, the fucking songs are legit bangers, as opposed to the music in this is amazing because it's really bad stock music.
And it's also completely arranged and supervised, believe it or not, by Neil Breen.
Oh, Neil Breen did that? I wonder, what else did he do? So, you're saying this guy stars, he directs, he writes, he music supervises. I'm sure he produced to some extent. You know, he's a quintuple threat. I don't know why we would ever doubt him.
He's a master. He's a master of his craft.
Especially if you're listening, Neil Breen have already commented on this post or tweeted next to this tweet with "Please bypass through my latest film."
Oh, I sent a tweet right after we watched this thing to him. I want him to just acknowledge me so bad, and then I can die.
Disappear like the ghost effect.
Yep. I can't believe I'm dying. Oh no, I can't believe I'm dying. Oh, I can't get myself out of this one. I'm dying.
It's how Adam would have wanted it.
Yep. Champion.
Well, on that note, whatever note that was, that's the end of our discussion of our 2 films for the evening. But before we go, we have some feedback to read. Because we asked y'all about what your best and least favorite, low-budget movies to coincide with this episode. We had a few people contribute, like James Rodriguez at RoddersJ04 on Twitter, who says, for best of these low-budget movies, The Blair Witch Project, Once, Monsters, Kill List, Tangerine, What We Do in the Shadows, and Resolution. Worst, Napoleon Dynamite, Cabin Fever, the original, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, and Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas. Christian Alvarez says, low-budget movies are an important part of film history. They can begin a legendary director's career, start an iconic franchise, or even become one of the most iconic films of all time. Bad examples include Ed Wood's Plan 9 from Outer Space, Birdemic, Ben and Arthur, Manos the Hands of Fate, and a recent favorite so bad's good movie, Tammy and the T-Rex. Good examples include Psycho, John Waters' Female Trouble, George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, John Carpenter's Halloween, A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original Mad Max, Fruitvale Station, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Rocky, and probably my favorite low-budget movie, Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead. And then Ryan Quarterman said Transformers Revenge of the Fallen.
I'm not even going to dignify that. Just this fucking guy. I pretty much agree with all of those stated. The only ones I as far as with Rodders, I agree with Cabin Fever and Saving Christmas. But I'm kind of positive on the other ones that he mentioned.
Wait, even Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4?
Yeah, because that is so bad, but I still can watch it. Like, I'll still watch it.
The one with Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger.
Yeah. Who do you think you're talking to? We've been talking to each other this long. You think I don't know which one Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4 is? It's the one with
Renee Zellweger. Yeah, but you said
Zellweger. Contradictory
things where you said that movie's the worst, so I don't know. You're confusing me.
No, it is. It's the worst of the franchise. I don't know. Texas Chainsaw 3D is pretty bad. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it's still fun to watch for how over-the-top Matthew McConaughey is in it. Like, he's going full.
Right.
You know, he's on 11 the whole movie. And Napoleon Dynamite, it has soured. Not sour, I don't want to say that. I really liked it when I first saw it. I thought it was so funny and kitschy and goofy. I'm not as plus on it as I used to be because I actually prefer Jared Hess's Gentlemen Broncos even more. I think that's his sort of masterpiece out of those quirky movies. But I still think it's fine. I still think it's pretty fun. It's still so quotable.
Yeah, I remember when that came out, and that was the most popular movie to everybody from my school. And I didn't see it until it was on DVD. And then when I did see it, I was so perplexed because I don't think it's funny at all. And I think that's kind of why I stayed away from Jared Hess's other movies. Because I was just like, this is like really unfunny and dumb.
I need you to promise me you will watch Gentlemen Broncos.
Okay.
Or pick it for the show. I'm going to have to find a way. It's going to have to get chosen.
I mean, sure, we can do that. Sure. As long as it fits the topic, we're fine. But I would say, yeah, I agree with a lot of the choices that were said. I think it's also interesting just finding out certain things. Like even Rocky for 76, it only cost $2 million, which is amazing.
Yep.
Even on that like, low a budget. A few of the other ones I would also like to shout out in terms of good ones would be one, Eraserhead, the original David Lynch movie, only cost $100,000. And you can tell it's low budget, but it creates such an interesting world in that low budget that I don't love. It's not my favorite David Lynch movie, but it is incredibly fascinating to watch. Also, Monty Python the Holy Grail only cost $40,000, which you hear is in British money or whatever in that time. But I think especially that manages to create a lot of scale, despite the fact that it's so low budget. And also probably, I think one that has gotten a lot of praise amongst horror fans, but I think might be a bit lost to like other people, the original Cat People.
Yeah.
Only cost $134,000. And it's about a woman who turns into a cat, but spoilers, you're not going to get a lot of actual shots of her transforming, but it creates so many great scares, particularly the one when she's, like, walking down, like, trying to get to the bus, and you don't see a goddamn thing, but it's, like, intensely terrifying as she just walks around and really puts you in the place of this woman just trying to get home, and you're immediately so on edge, despite the fact you don't see a goddamn thing. I think it's what influenced a lot of these other low-budget filmmakers, like particularly John Carpenter. That has so many shades of, like, influencing Carpenter, just that one sequence alone.
No, yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, you know, there's a couple that I kind of thought of thrown there too. You already named quite a few of them, but I mean, the original Mad Max was only 400,000.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's pretty intense. I mean, it shows its budget, but just for the vision that they were, you know, that Miller got across and what it's became, is pretty impressive. I mean, if not phenomenal. And then, of course, you know, I mean, dude, the Blair Witch Project.
Yep.
It was less than $1 million. It was only I think it's even considered less than like 750,000.
Mm-hmm.
That movie still, and I don't care what people say, you know, that detract from it or whatever, the detractors, I still think it's a great movie. I still think it's so expertly, smartly told. I think it's probably the best found footage movie of all time.
It's a movie that definitely, when I initially saw it, I saw it way after the buzz. And I was just like, oh, is this what this is all about? Whatever, I like it, but fine. And it's only gotten better each time I've really seen it. Because you just appreciate that craft. And also how much they're able to create such suspense and also really engage you in these kind of shitty characters despite all this stuff. And even build a mythology. Like, so much is built on just those interviews at the beginning that apparently were mainly sort of like just fed to these like random locals who were just there. And I think it does a stunning job of creating all of that. I would say, to contrast the good things we're talking about, two I would like to particularly mention, where we mentioned Blumhouse. There are plenty of bad low-budget Blumhouse movies, but I would genuinely still say maybe one of the worst movies I've seen in a theater in particular is The Gallows.
Oh, that's atrocious.
If you don't know, folks, this is a movie that was like shot in a high school. It's about a bunch of kids who like go into their high school at night because there's a whole thing about like, oh, a kid was killed like during performance of this one play that we're for some reason gonna do again or something. And it's so many scenes of like, if you want to like really appreciate Blair Witch, watch that movie, because it's even more of just people screaming things at each other, like each other's names over and over and over again in really poorly like done found footage. It's really bad.
Yeah, no, I can't stand that movie.
No. And then another one, which I've only seen because I did see this with friends who like bad movies, but this is not nearly as entertaining as The Fateful Findings, is people mention like the Kirk Cameron stuff, which I know gets like a lot of play, but there's also the weird, bizarre success of a movie called God's Not Dead.
Oh, with Kevin Sorbo?
With Kevin Sorbo, where the entire premise of that movie is Kevin Sorbo plays an atheist college professor who is trying to tell everybody about like, oh, God's not dead, the actual philosophical concept. And one brave boy in class is just like, but what if he's actually alive? And I'm going to debate you on it. It's like a Ben Shapiro, the movie. It's the adaptation. It's the life story.
There's a sequel.
2 sequels.
Oh, is there 2 of them now? Oh,
I've seen the second one starring Melissa Joan Hart. I have not seen the third one because I'm like, I've already wasted 4 hours of my life watching God's Not Dead movies. I'm not doing this again.
Right. And you understand he's not dead. Like, you got it. You picked it up.
God's not dead. He's surely alive, to quote the song from the first movie.
You know, and then another one I do want to throw out there too, which I'm not a fan of. I'm really not a fan of mostly the whole franchise. There's some I appreciate more than others, but for what it did and how big it became, I mean, you cannot leave out Paranormal Activity either.
Yeah, that pretty much created, like, especially the Blumhouse kind of, and the resurgence of found footage that happened.
You're right. I mean, 100%. I mean, that created, like you said, it basically created a fucking studio that is putting out a lot of good stuff and a lot of shit stuff still. But it's just, it was never been for me. But still, I can appreciate what it did, and it definitely has its fans.
I would say the third one, and also even the weird spin-off, the marked ones, are the ones to watch of those.
I completely agree. I 100% agree.
Yeah, especially when Christopher Landon, who would later go on to make like Freaky, and the Happy Death Day movies, kind of came on board to that franchise. It really improved. As opposed to the first one is an interesting small movie that I give a lot of credit for being able to do all that with its small budget, but also is very clearly like, oh, this is a movie literally shot at somebody's very big house with two people who don't know how to like act that well.
Right. No, I completely agree. And the thing is, I tried to specifically shy away from horror when doing this because there are so many that are under 2 million that have become classics. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on. If you're going to go on a fucking trek to watch low budget movies, there's going to be a lot of garbage. I would definitely rely on word of mouth or even like internet lists or things like that, because there's way more garbage out there than good, but there is a lot of gems.
Yes. And then we had a couple other pieces of feedback to read that were in reference to previous episodes. One from Eagle Eyes Cherry Jubilee, who's at Kanyahita Mala on Twitter, says, in reference to our Oscars episode from a couple weeks ago, Toys is another instance of my younger self being into a movie that is mildly terrifying and not entirely child appropriate, as I think we discussed on the show as well about that. Very true. I could see that to some extent. And then Emily Slade, friend of the show, at Emily Slade 1, in reference to our 1987 episode, responded to a tweet we put out about, we didn't mention this on the show, but With Neil and I has a drinking game attached to it by fans, where basically you drink along with the characters. And we put out a Twitter thing referencing this and saying, we don't recommend this just to, avoid alcohol poisoning. And Emily says, I have done the With Nail and I drinking game. You substitute lighter fluid for vinegar. I choose balsamic. A brave soldier you are.
Way to go, Emily. I mean, I consider myself a professional drinker, and even I'm not going to try that.
No. Yeah. Especially if you go the full length. I think the drinking game is just you take a shot whenever they do drink something. If you drink the full amount of, like, With Nail, you are going to die of alcohol poisoning.
No, you're going to die. Yeah, you are absolutely going to die. But even doing shots with them, good Lord, man. I mean, you're talking at least 12 shots. At least.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Over the course of only like 100-minute long movie.
Yeah, you're going to get fucking plowed.
But also, we want to thank you all for that feedback. And we want to make a bit of an announcement that for the last nearly 3 years, we've been doing weekly feedback requests, and we appreciate all the feedback we've gotten. And those requests about best and worst related to whatever topic we're doing. But we've noticed that most of the time, it's kind of dried up in a way that, like, we kind of get where not everybody's going to be able to respond to, like, any of the weird topics we do with that kind of thing. And there have been loyal ones like Christian and James who have done it every single week, which we appreciate, or most weeks. But we're gonna go ahead and put a halt to the weekly feedback requests. But we still want to hear from you. We still would definitely like you to either comment on our Facebook or Twitter page or email us at our email address, which we'll mention below. And we'll definitely read it on the show from time to time. But we decided to kind of change things up with coming up on our 3-year anniversary to, we're going to introduce a new segment next week.
What?
Oh, I didn't tell you this at all, Adam. Yes, that's what we're doing next week. We're introducing a new segment.
God damn it, Thomas, way to not keep me in the loop.
Yes, we are going to be introducing a new segment, and we're working on a bit of the kinks, but we'll debut it, and hopefully you all respond well to it. And nothing else, if you give us feedback about that, we would appreciate it, so we can improve on what we do with the segment, or even contribute when we'll reveal what that segment is next week.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. We got a couple new things coming up. It for the show, shaking it up just a little bit.
Yeah,
it's going to be fun.
Week. It's going to be a big week next week. Stay tuned. But before you do that, we want to thank you all for contributing all that, and we also want to thank Chris Oliver for the intro and outro music used in our show. Listen to more of his music at chrisoliver.bandcamp.com. Thanks to Emily Scarda for the art for our show. And thanks to our supporters on Patreon, patreon.com/DEDBpod, where for just $1 a month, you all get to vote in polls to pick, topics we do or movies we cover and listen to bonus podcasts. And this week that we're posting this episode, there'll be a poll up for my 2 good choices for an upcoming episode, because June coming up is Pride Month. We like celebrating queer either filmmakers or actors or actresses. And we're going to devote an episode next month to Kristen Stewart, who we're both big fans of. And you get to vote between my two good choices for that episode. And my two choices are the recent 2020 film in which she is underneath the water in this big station trying to fend off some mysterious creatures underwater. It's the movie Underwater, of course.
Oh, which I love. But wait, what's the other one?
The other one is a movie called Personal Shopper, which is one of her more classy features. And this one is about, she plays a personal shopper in Paris who comes across some mysterious influences from paranormal and other uncertain sources. And I really like both these movies. I'd be curious to talk about either of them. But you all are the ones ultimately get to decide that. You all, edgelord patrons, get to vote on which one of those we're going to do.
Yeah, and by the way, too, I also want to throw out there, if you are a patron or are interested in becoming, we just put out, basically, within the last 2 weeks, 2 brand new Patreon exclusive little bits. We got our little blurb about the new Mortal Kombat movie, and we also have our series retrospective on WandaVision. So,
yes.
We're always pumping something out.
Yes, for sure. And including also, you might get some sneak peeks at certain things, like some of those big changes we were talking about for the show. You can see maybe some sneak peeks at that if you just pay that $1.
Give us your money.
Please, we would appreciate it. And you can find us for absolutely free on Twitter and Facebook at DEDBpod, where we'll share things around, and also doubleedgeddoublebill@gmail.com, all spelled out. That's where you can email us for some feedback and stuff like that. And if you can't support us through the Patreon, why not support us by buying some merchandise with our logo on over at the TeePublic ESO store, where you can get like a mug, a face mask, or a tote bag, even a shirt with the logo on it, so you can do what, Adam?
Buy our merch. I can't believe it. I can't believe you haven't bought our merch. Oh, no. Our merch. Gotta buy it. Oh, no. Oh, I can't help you out of this one. As long as you buy our merch.
I'm sorry, Adam. I really wanted to hear more of that, but I was too busy trying to drink coffee out my double-edged double bill coffee mug. Ugh. Yes, you can recreate that scene with a double-edged double bill coffee mug.
You really should.
But for more of my own individual work, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, or Letterboxd as @NotTheWho'sTommy, where I post my individual musings, and I also do some writing at both marianithomas.wordpress.com and film-cred.com.
And you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Atom or Adam, that's ATOM_OR_ADAM. And I'm also on Letterboxd. I'm not paying for the pro thing, so I'm not syncing all the names up, but it's under Schwanson. That's SCHWANDTSON. I've just started actually doing reviews on there, and for just starting them, I'm already up to like 50. So, just go ahead and follow me on there or any other social media sort of platforms that were mentioned.
For more of this great audio content, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and other podcasting platforms. For listening on the ESO network, why not listen to all the other great shows on there? And you can even dig into our archives on our Podbean main feed, for especially the 70 or so episodes we did before we joined ESO. And nothing else, if you can't buy that merch, if you can't support us on the Patreon on a monthly basis for that $1, the completely, absolutely free way that helps us get more visibility is to rate, review, or simply share the show around.
Yeah, we just want some visibility, guys. I mean, seriously. Please help us.
Please rate, review, or share the show. Please share, rate.
Or review it. I can't believe you're not sharing it. Rate or review it. You need to leave. I want to hear about your project.
Especially, please make sure if you do a review, if you could do it in like a Neil Breen cadence where it's like, this podcast is great. I can't believe it. It's such a great podcast. What a great podcast to listen to.
Oh, please. That's that's how I want everything that's addressed to our show from now on. And Neil Breen speak.
Neil Breen speak, yes, please.
Yep.
But Adam, it's time we ended the show, but we gotta do our picking for next week, and we mentioned next week's a big week. You know why it's a big week, Adam?
3-year anniversary.
Yes.
What? That's insane. We've been going for 3 fucking years. I've been on all but 2 episodes. So, hey, I got that going for me. Thomas has been on all of them, but hey, whatever. Yeah, he's so fucking cool.
Finally, validation. But yes, we're doing our 3rd-year anniversary, and we usually like doing something related to comic book stuff since our first episode, very first, released nearly 3 years ago, was our Marvel episode where we talked about Iron Man and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. So, we're keeping that tradition, but we're not doing Marvel again. We would never do Marvel again at any point in the near future. Wink, 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 wink. But this next week we are doing non-Marvel and non-DC comic book adaptations, which we've done before as a topic, but we haven't done in a while. And it's a fruitful topic to do, especially when so much is obsessed over what's the next Marvel movie, what's the next DC movie, where are the Easter eggs in this Marvel trailer, where are the Easter eggs in this DC trailer. It's nice to look at the other, like, oh wait, there are other comic book adaptations that are coming out not from those 2 main companies.
Yeah, I know. It's fucking wild, isn't it? Good Lord. There's actually, well, I want to call any of them competition, but there are other sort of avenues for your superhero and or comic book film enjoyment.
Yes, until Disney and or Warner Brothers buys them up.
Which will happen probably by the time the next episode comes out.
Maybe, who knows? But I have the 2 good ones related to that, and you have the 2 bad ones. I've assigned them between 1 and 10 for both of those. You've done the same. And each of us will pick a number between 1 and 10, and whichever is closest to the 2 for each person, that ends up getting us our good and our bad feature for the next episode. So Adam, for my 2 good choices, number between 1 and 10.
Let's just go number 3, baby.
Okay, at number 1... I actually had 2. I have the sequel to a movie that was surprisingly successful and ended up getting a bit of a franchise that unfortunately stopped here. I have Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy 2: The Golden Army.
Oh, yeah. You already know I love that movie. Sweet.
Yeah.
I love that movie. I love it, Thomas. And what was your alternate?
Well, over on the other side, at number 8, I had a movie that's based on, I believe, a graphic novel that wasn't technically related to either of these things. As far as I know, I have a future Academy Award winner Bong Joon-ho's Snowpiercer.
Oh, wow, that's a good pull, too. That is a fucking great movie. Oh, man, either way, win-win.
Yeah.
Although I think we have we got the more fun one to talk about with Hellboy 2.
What are you talking about? What's not fun about Snowpiercer? Right? There's so much fun.
Yeah, they eat babies. They talk about eating babies.
And eating bugs as well out of like bars and shit. Yes, many things.
Yeah,
but now, Adam, for your 2 bad choices, I'm gonna go the opposite route. I'll go number 7.
Okay.
Always a good sign.
Yeah. At number 8, I have the 4th in a loose franchise. I mean, it is technically a franchise, and there's always talks of a reboot coming. I have it's the Crow Wicked Prayer starring Edward Furlong and David Boreanaz.
Another great victim of our movie nights.
And another Edward Furlong vehicle to talk about in recent memory.
Oh, good.
Oh boy. Oh boy. At number 1, I had, which I believe is based off a Dark Horse comic, the Jeff Bridges, Ryan Reynolds, R.I.P.D.
Oof. I'm not dead yet, because we're not doing that. There'll be a lot more to talk about with the Crow Wicked Prayer.
Oh boy. Dennis Hopper, baby.
Oof. All right. So we'll get to all of that next time. But until then, guys, I can't believe it. I can't believe we haven't ended the show. It's still going. The show. It won't end. Why hasn't it ended?
It's time to say goodbye. We have to say goodbye. The people want to hear goodbye. I'm done with this show. I'm done with it. I don't owe you anything.
has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping for the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.